So I have to admit that as much as I enjoy riding my electric unicycle, I always been a little bit curious about what the other forms of micro-electric transport are really like to ride. I have plans to learn how to ride an electric skateboard this winter, since I figure, well, the park is going to be pretty empty and the chance of someone seeing me making fool of myself would be slightly lower. And of course, whenever the opportunity comes up to try something new, I'm always up for it. Because of the large EV riding community here in New York, largely because I'm convinced that this is one of the best places in the world to ride. That means that there's actually quite a lot of demos whenever a new product is introduced. And this week, we get to try something slightly unconventional. This week, the Speedboard. Impression from someone who don't really ride an electric skateboard. How hard could it be, right? And why I think this unusual electric skateboard could be huge. And I bet it's not for the reason you would expect. Roll the intro! As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And please stay to the end for a preview on the next episode. So I admit I haven't exactly been consistent when it comes to the selection of my activities and hobbies. I rollerbladed, but when it comes to snow sports, I went the route of snowboarding, even though I never spent a single day of my life surfing. And then when I have to choose an electric vehicle, I didn't go the route of electric skateboard, which again seems like the obvious choice for someone who likes snowboarding. I went with electric unicycle. The cool thing about the micro-electric transport is that the segment is still relatively new, and as a result there's a whole lot of experimentation going on. And because of the relatively straightforwardness of the electric drive system as compared to the internal combustion engine with all its requirement for lubrication and cooling, the barrier of entry on coming up with something unconventional, unique, and interesting is a lot lower. Nowhere is this more true than an electric skateboard. Of course, they're the brands that you all heard of. Boosted, LaCroix, or Evolve, and many others, but if you want to, with some research and basic electrical know-how, it isn't too hard to buy all the components separately and put a custom e-board together yourself. Some people have pushed this a bit further, like this direct drive 4-wheel drive board one of the local riders just made themselves. But the board that we're going to try today is from someone who have leveraged the modularity of the technology but pushed it way further. We're meeting at the East River Park, our designated experimental wheel demo spot where we rode the Godway Nikola a few months back. Since there are plenty of rooms and usually very few people for us to disturb with our high-speed antics. Of course, the demo is also a good opportunity for us to all drag our favorite EV out to compare notes and, well, have some fun. Oh my god, Tom, what have you done? I don't know! Just to be clear, this is a Kickstarter project, so all the typical caveats apply, which is you may very well never get what it is you pay for at the end. And unlike some of the more recent projects, there also isn't an established company backing the project. Instead, you have a one-man shop, and David Jackson is going to be your guy. However, David isn't exactly new to Kickstarter, as he has successfully launched Coffee Julie, which is a drinking accessory, with David Petrella all the way back in 2011, which had been an early success story for Kickstarter. They raised more than $300,000 through their campaign, and subsequently another $150,000 when they appear on Shark Tank 2 years later. Since then, he had several other successful campaigns, and I believe the Speedboard would be his 7th. As much much as this was an unusual departure from the mainstream electric skateboard, the Speedboard was a product well plugged into the Eskate community. Of course, there were questions and debate about the ride quality and the value of the dramatically different wheel configuration, but I was surprised that few questioned the build componentry of the boards itself, since the prototype, well, looked very much like a prototype. Even the use of plexi as a deck is highly unusual when it comes to board construction.
Once you go, then you go.
Like I said, I'm a complete noob at e-boarding and never skateboarded a day in my life, but even I, after a few failed attempts, were able to get on and ride the Speedboard around the park. The unique front end converts your lean angle into steering motion on the front tire. The whole mechanism appears linked to the profile of the tire itself, and the steering angle also felt a bit exaggerated, but this probably is a plus since it does reduce turning radius on what felt like a pretty long board. By the way, just as a frame of reference, I did jump on an NYC Kelly board and roll that around the sand circuit to see what a proper board felt like in comparison, and for the most part, unless you're crawling at less than 5 miles per hour, the Speedboard didn't feel any less stable despite being 2 wheels short. So David's previous experience with Kickstarter certainly shows. The low funding target at first seems somewhat surprising, considering that is not even close to enough to cover what he had invested on the prototype alone. However, given that this was an experimental vehicle in what was already a pretty niche market, it does appear that he correctly predicted the number of boards he would sell and set the right expectation to make sure that his project was funded.
Where's the Speedboard? Oh, there it is.
Leveraging off-the-shelf componentry also sounded like a good move. It was part of the reason why so few people questioned the build, since all the parts used were well known to be solid choices. Identifying the few pain points common to performance e-board and addressing them by minimizing carrying weight at 26 pounds and modularize the battery pack so they can get on a flight further adds to the board's appeal. You can tell that this was a product that benefited from the feedback the enthusiast community provided. And as strange as it may seem, listening to what your customer actually wanted seems like a relatively rare thing in the micro transport market. There are many reasons to this, and given my limited knowledge base, I can only speculate that perhaps it's because that many of the companies that manufacture and sell the electric scooter, unicycle, and to a lesser degree the electric skateboards are mostly based in China. As a result, there's the cultural, language, and of course the political barrier that makes it very difficult for them to communicate. Instead, they rely on the try and true market research method, which is basically make the largest variety of random strange things possible and simply wait and see what actually sells. The ride of the Speedboard was pretty interesting. It feels a little bit like attempting to ride an electric scooter without holding onto the handlebar, and at lower speed the steering does feel slightly jittery, but less than what you would expect of a board that only have 2 wheels. The steering does feel a bit loose, but from what David has said, it is adjustable and can be customized to suit individual tastes. Low speed maneuvering was slightly tricky, and there were some questions as to how this board would handle actual street conditions, mixing with car traffic, and based on the demo, my impression of the general consensus was that the combination of unpredictable nature of New York City traffic, terrible surfaces, and a general lack of room would make this board tougher to ride here in New York City. Of course, we don't really know for sure. David, if you are watching this, you should definitely join us on a group right next time when you're in New York City so we can see how this board handles actual road conditions. And there is the question of speed. Of course, I had to choose one of the slowest spot to write to talk about speed. But despite its name, the Speedboard, at least here in New York, would not be considered to be fast. And I suspect it may have something to do with pesky and boring things like liabilities, responsibilities, and legality, or so on. But whatever the case may be, the Speedboard is designed, engineered, and built to go no faster than 30 miles per hour. Oh my god, you see this? I got on the sidewalk to avoid the cobblestone, but then they put cobblestone on the sidewalk, which is very helpful. And also, I do somewhat agree with the theory that most traffic in a dense city like New York goes no more than 25 to 30 miles an hour. So it's okay for you to be able to keep up on the Speedboard. However, I do feel that there are many occasions that I have experienced personally where a burst of greater speed is helpful in getting you out of some tight situations.
So why should you care about an experimental board that barely got funded on Kickstarter?
Well, let me tell you about Ernesto. Now, you may not have heard of him before. However, if you like electric skateboards, you probably heard of the board he built.
The Cali Dot New York City. It is one of the most expensive premium e-board you can buy on the market, with a custom CNC drive enclosure and a carbon fiber deck he presses lovingly himself. And despite the high prices on his board, people happily pay Ernesto in full and wait months for their boards to be made.
They do so because of Ernesto's reputation on building and delivering boards that outperform anything else available on the market. And when you're backing the Speedboard Kickstarter, you aren't just backing a product. What you're really backing is David's ability to produce and deliver this board. And as someone who has successfully launched multiple projects and created million-dollar companies surrounding those products, doesn't seem too bad of a bet.
I like everything about you.
And in the end, I personally think that the product can always shift and iterate as long as you have someone who's willing to listen and look for opportunities. Aha! If you stayed with me till the end, I somehow managed to waste another 10 minutes of your life. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and do me a favor, tell friends about it. Until the next episode, thank you.
I like everything about you.
And next week, my winter of experimentation continues, and I tried the one wheel. Will I learn the true meaning of the word stoke?
I want to try riding there. This is the New York Water Taxi Terminal. It's this barge that's just floating in the middle of the East River. I ride past here pretty frequently, but I don't know, never had a nice enough a day like today to stop by and check it out.